my career goal is to be Prime Minister. Everything I'm doing is kind of in aid of that end goal. That Deloitte job, again, super thankful for. Hated every second of it. Super thankful for it. Don't go to university for the sake of just going. It's not just hospitality tech startup, and the hospitality world has gone to sleep entirely because of COVID. Consumer behavior has changed massively. So people buy now through people. They buy through people that they engage, they like, that they trust. I think that everyone can be extroverted, but you just need different circumstances to do it. Like I lost my girlfriend. I split up with my girlfriend. I was dead. I was absolutely finished at that point. I had lost every ounce of belief in the business. The best market to invest in is a very small market that's growing very fast. My politics are based off economics. So for me, I think a strong country is built on a strong economy, and a strong economy is built from fast growth.
All right, let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to this new episode of our show, The Diary of a Founder. This is a show where we talk to founders and try to understand their life journey. We feel that we can teach something or we can give some valuable lessons to the founders who are listening in today. And we call it By the Founders, With the Founders, and For the Founders. And by the way, I didn't mention it earlier, like Bala and I are the host of this podcast series, and both of us are also founders. So yeah, with that, I think there is also an element of region that we want to cover. We want this show to be able to try to understand the journey of founders from Bangalore to Bay Area via London, so that we understand what founders across the world are facing and we learn across the region. So yeah, with that, let's get started.
Great. So today we have a interesting guest, Richard, who inspired me on many aspects. The first time I met him, he said he wanted to be a prime minister. I was like, that got me curious, right? So here is a man who's on a journey, started out as a barista, quit the big four job, and started his founder journey. Now flipped over to the other side in the investor role. All of this on his way to becoming the prime minister. We wish him all the best and welcome Richard to the show. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a glowing intro. I'd take that one 100%. It's definitely been an interesting journey from barista to aspiring venture capitalist and prime minister. Yeah, like I say, I've been in love with entrepreneurship, startups, early stage business since, well, it's basically my very first memory. I remember being 4 years old in school, and as cliche and cringe as it sounds, like I have very clear memories of that being what I wanted to be, that and a footballer, but the footballer didn't come off in the end. So I guess I'm stuck with entrepreneurship. But yeah, I can definitely very clearly remember that burning desire to just build stuff from a young age. And yeah, I just kind of experienced all walks of it so far, and very aware that I've got a lot more to experience. So hopefully can dig into that a lot more today and get some questions and get some good conversations going around that.
Start there. Yeah, I think let's start with your early life on what led you to the founder moment, like before your first startup. What led you to that moment, right? You can start wherever you want and help us understand what brought you to that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, my very first memory in life was as a 4-year-old kid. And it obviously now I'm looking back on this and I understand what's wrong with it. But as a 4-year-old kid, my first exposure to business, if you like, was I'm a big Arsenal fan. And at the time, there was a chap called Alisher Usmanov who owned Arsenal Football Club. And then you had people like Roman Abramovich and so on. And that was my first exposure to business. So I went around the playground as a 4-year-old telling everyone I wanted to be a Russian oligarch when I grew up. I didn't know what a Russian oligarch was. I obviously now know what it is. So I don't want to be a Russian oligarch, but I wanted to be a business person. I wanted to be in business. I wanted to be in entrepreneurship. So that was my first memory. And I can remember that clear as day. It's the only thing I can really remember from being a child. So that was like my first start. And then, as I said, a keen sportsman my whole life growing up from young, played at really good level across a few other sports. So I've always been uber competitive and I like to push myself. But at the same time, football was a big sport for me, and I started just buying and selling some football boots as a 13-year-old kid. Like, that was the first thing I did. There's a few friends of mine wanted some football boots. I could get some cool ones, so I managed to buy them and sell them on for a bit. And that was my first taste of, okay, there's a way to make money. This is cool. This isn't a job.
Sorry, what age was this?
I was
13.
13, like 12,
Okay,
13.
great, great.
So I was super, super young. And it was my first like actual real thing of, okay, here's a value. I do this bit of work and this value, and I create a higher level of value, which is just the sale at the end. So I kind of, that was my first bit of genuine exposure to it. And then as I got a bit older, I got more into sort of fashion and clothing and that kind of thing, and was able to go into that and do that at a significantly bigger scale. So it was then at sort of 14, 15, I was running a slightly larger operation, if you will, with a lot more moving parts. Yeah, it was at that point where I maybe even in my head, I didn't know that whilst I was always telling myself, "Oh, I love doing this. This is great fun, and I'd love to do this forever." The school I went to was very Oxbridge. You should be going to Oxbridge, Oxford or Cambridge. They should be going high level university, and that was I did not ever see that happening for me. But I just felt like, okay, that's the way it has to be. That's the way I have to go. So even when I was doing, really good money for a 14, 15-year-old and really enjoying doing that, I didn't ever look at it as an actual thing. It was like, oh, this is fun to do. This is a fun thing. And I just thought, oh, okay, when I turn 18, I'm going to end up going to uni or doing a job or whatever. And that's where life begins. So that was probably my first taste of actually doing something and getting the payment in for something that I could provide.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry to interrupt. I mean, is that because you were doing a real business, you were making real money, but still it didn't felt like a business in your head? Is it because of the environment that, hey, this is not real? Going to uni is the real thing to do. Is it that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I grew up in a small town in South Wales where, don't get me wrong, it's not some like rural, hard done by place. It's a pretty like upper middle class place. So I'm not going to sit here and cry because I definitely have had privileges in that regard. But it's just not a case of, okay, everyone's out there making their own money through business, and it's not like a super tech hub or anything like that. It's just a pretty run of the mill small Welsh town. But yeah, I guess for me, it was just never like everyone in my year, everyone wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor or some form of professor, or they wanted to have an accountant, financial advisor, whatever it might be, and the people that they bring in as role model examples and stuff like that would be accountants, lawyers, that kind of thing. So I've come across this phrase recently, which I think is very true in this instance, where it was, if you can't see it, you can't be it, essentially.
Exactly.
Seeing
Yeah.
all these things, all these accountants, all these lawyers, people who built great corporate careers. And by the way, corporate careers are fantastic. And I'm not one of those people that says everyone should be an entrepreneur, because I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just never going to happen. I struggled to sit in school and be lectured to for an hour at a time. I just really, really struggled. I can't take it in. I can't soak it in. Therefore, yeah, that was like a bit of a nice release for me in terms of, oh, this is just a fun thing that I do because I don't like school. So it's on the side, but it was never positioned to me as, oh yeah, you can actually do stuff like this for the rest of your life, and you can actually kind of build a career off this. It doesn't have to be some Big Four accounting career or some Magic Circle law career. It just go and build stuff, and that ultimately, to summarize, that is what I enjoy. I enjoy taking
Yeah.
stuff from
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Sorry to keep digging into this. Like I have a teen kid who's going into his A levels now, so I'm also curious. So what's been your family's support during this time, like when you were building a business in school?
But they didn't really know about it when I was in school. I
Okay.
I kept it quite quiet. Well, I mean, people knew that I was doing stuff, and they knew that I would like buy and sell stuff, but they didn't know to what scale I was doing it. So I was doing it to, pretty sizable scale for a kid. And I think my parents just thought it was a bit of a hobby on the side, which to some degree it was. I wasn't sat there, building a 5-year strategy or doing anything like that. I was just, I knew clothes, and I knew what would sell and what would do well in the kind of resale market, and I could plan for that, and I knew what I was doing with that. So maybe I didn't really tell people because it was maybe more of a hobby. But yeah, it wasn't like a big thing. Like I'm telling my parents I'm doing this and that, and didn't have this long term strategy for it. I guess it was just a case of like just understand the process of starting a transaction and finishing it. But I think in
And look
terms
here.
of my parents, they've always been super supportive of. I think especially my dad. He knew that when I'm sure we'll go on to it in a bit, but when I got my first proper jobs, he was like, he didn't say it to me because he didn't want to try and influence me at all, but he knew that I wouldn't last there because it's just not for me. Like that's just not how I've operated in the past, and it's not what I enjoy, and it's not what I get excited over. So I think they could probably tell, and ever since they've always been very supportive. And both of my parents have maybe both really good examples in terms of going against the grain and doing things that people have told them, but you definitely can't do that. And then they've both gone and done it. So I guess that's a really good example for me to have, if I see that every day, and it goes back to that you can't see it you can't beat it unless you see it type thing. So, yeah, they've always been supportive, but maybe didn't know the degree to which I was doing that as a kid.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Look, and see, like this is generally what I get curious about, right? That as kids, like we are still forming our opinions and we are very fresh in how we think. It's very easy to fall prey of the system, and you try to fit into like what is being done and what everyone is doing around you. And in that stage, like, having integrity and doing things that you actually like and being like true to that is something that I feel is doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. But here I'm hearing that you always knew that this is not something that you wanted to do, go the route of being to the university, and you always knew this is something there's something else that you wanted to do. How did you find like that integrity, and how did you find courage to stand up against and for what you wish to do, right? Like that's something I would like to understand.
I actually think it all stems from maybe being a bit rebellious and poorly behaved. In school, I was maybe slightly boisterous and loud, and that wasn't because I was like looking for attention or anything like that. I would get bored. Like I couldn't enjoy school. I would get bored, and I guess for me, I did well in school. I did really well in school. I'm not going to sit here and say that I hate school or whatever, because again, I'm not like that. I think school definitely serves a purpose. And whilst I would probably make some changes to school and the school system, I did well, but I didn't enjoy it. And I sit there and I would be so bored. And maybe for me, it was just something to like rebel against doing that formal education of A levels and degree and so on. And like I said, I don't really think I had a plan with it. I don't think I thought, oh, this could turn into a multi-million pound turnover business. It was just a case of I like this stuff. I know I can buy this stuff and sell it for even more. Why would I not do it? So yeah, it was just that. And then when you see that it's paying you money, because I was doing it at the same time that I was doing my job at Coffee One as a barista. So I was earning the salary there, and then I was making more money. And at the same time, I was like, oh, how can I make more? Like, how can I go and be a delivery driver as well and do stuff? I was just like trying to think of, okay, how do I accumulate cash here? And I think that's what we were speaking before this about changes of perspectives. Maybe at that age, I was very much like, it was my first exposure to cash. So I was very much like, oh, this is fun. And as a 15, 16-year-old kid, I could afford a lot more than my peers could, and I was liking that. I was enjoying that. I mean, my first car was a black Audi S3 with the full body kit, and I had clothes and stuff. So I think I'm the man here. Like I loved it. And I guess it was just more of that where people were, planning their career and whatever. And I was just like, I don't want to plan my career. I don't want to go to university. I just want to do this stuff and it's fun. And I guess, yeah, my viewpoint has changed massively on cash and seeing cash as a motivator. I don't at all anymore. Again, I probably did a full 180 on that. But yeah, at the time, it was just like, this is real money and this is coming into my account and it's not really requiring much effort. I know what this is inside out essentially. So yeah, I just carried on doing it, and it was an opposite to school that felt right to me.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So that's your first job. This is like while you are at school, that's your part-time job,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then Deloitte happened. Yeah. So what's that? How did that happen? And what's that part of your journey?
Yeah, I mean, so I was never going to go to university. I can't even sit there and think about the thought of being lectured to for hours on end about something I'm not really interested in. I just wouldn't do well. I just know I wouldn't. So I needed something else. And again, to the point of, I don't know if this isn't like, maybe this was just a fun thing that I was doing in school, buying and selling clothes, and it did me well then, but I need to grow up a bit and maybe get a serious job, this, that, and the other. And I was maybe under that thing of what my school was saying, and that it's Oxbridge. And I'm grateful for that, by the way, because it instilled a work ethic in me, or maybe a standard that I now hold to this day. So I'm not sitting here like criticizing that. It just wasn't maybe delivered in the right way for me, but I've still got some really good lessons from it. But yeah, that Deloitte job, again, super, super thankful for. Hated every second of it. Super thankful for it. I can tell you with absolutely no concern that I am the worst auditor Deloitte has ever seen, ever. Like, there's never been a worse accountant auditor at Deloitte than me. I was dreadful at it, but it taught me so much. And it was a case for, like, I was doing my ACA qualifications alongside of it. They were paying for it. Great. I was getting real world experience, going out and meeting clients, understanding how work dynamics and relationships work. And I think as a result of it, it's put me so much further ahead in what I do now, because as an 18, 19-year-old kid, I was speaking to, FTSE companies or multinational corporations that, speaking to the top dogs at these companies. It teaches you how to have real conversations pretty quickly. So for me, I was then, yeah, thrown into the deep end almost, and that, well, you have to do this and you have to get this information from them, go and do it. So yeah, super, super grateful for that. And would I go back and do it again? Probably, probably. Like, in terms of leaving school, I think that was a really good route for me, because I think the
Instead
different,
of university, you would still pick that. Yeah.
yeah, or even instead of starting a company, right, like a proper company at that age, because I know that when I was doing the first business, if you will, I was making so many mistakes, and that's natural, and I still make so many mistakes to this day. But the problem was I was doing it under zero guidance. Like, I didn't even have a foundation level of like real world experience. I'd been in Coffee One, which is, yeah, a good job, but in terms of what I want to do and what I'm doing now, it provides little value. But I know that I just, like, basic communication errors that I would make, and basic body language mistakes that I would make, and understanding negotiations and stuff like that. I would make big errors there. And as I said, no, I still make mistakes to this day. However, I've now got a foundation layer of knowledge that I make those off of, that means that I can come back to a pretty normal stage, where most people who have had experience in their sector or companies and so on, much the same, where I didn't have that building my first business. That's what Deloitte gave me. It gave me that foundation of, this is how you work within a team. This is how you work to deadlines. This is how you get stuff over the line. This is how you extract the right information that you want. This is how you have the right conversations. So yeah, in terms of leaving school, whilst I was never going to do that for my career and do that for a long period of time, I definitely needed it, and I'm still very grateful to this day. I mean, I even messaged the guy that hired me earlier to this day to drop him, like, because again, like, super, super influential guy in my career so far. Because let's be honest, he took a punt on me, because
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced there was more qualified people than I to take that role. I'm very, very, very convinced that there was.
Did you ask him like what did he found in you that led him to
Well,
hire you?
I think there's that whole phrase of the personality hire, and I think that's exactly what I was. So I did my job interview with him, and within 5 minutes, we were just sat there talking about what car he drives and what car he likes and who his football team is and stuff like that. And it completely derailed from the job. It started off
He
job,
just
and then,
liked you.
yeah, we literally just got on really, really well. To the point.
I'm saying the vibe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that, 100%. Like, he literally, so his name was Woody, and everyone used to call me Woody's prodigy after, he just used to, like,
Okay.
I was just modeled after him. And he's a really, really good guy. And like I said, I credit him for a lot, because yeah, he definitely did take a punt on me. And in terms of the Deloitte stuff, it didn't pay off because I was gone within a year. But from a selfish point of view, that was a year's worth of experience for me that has actually put me in such a good position to go off and build and do what I want to do.
Okay. Because, yeah. So the next question I was going to ask is anyway that, like, so would you recommend people skipping universities, right? It feels like Deloitte gave you that foundation. So do you say a similar thing is a good replacement for university for kids to start?
For me, 100%, it was significantly better than university. I still, again, I'm not anti-university. I still believe university serves a purpose. However, I think that people have bought into it being the next step, and that's what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't buy into it being the natural next step. It's become too much of a comfort thing where people are like, okay, I'm 18. Oh, I can go to uni for 3 more years, study something else, and I don't have to go into the workplace. That's the issue. Well, I think someone I know recently got a degree.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So sorry, the other question, related question was like, so you didn't miss university when you went ahead and build these businesses, like whatever fundamentals and foundation you needed to build the business, you already got it from your jobs in at
yeah,
these companies.
that
Yeah.
whole communication piece, the ability to just work in a professional setting, I got that from Deloitte. You know, I don't think I would have got that from university because I think university does give you important skills in terms of independent living and studying to a certain level and so on, which are important for me. The thing I say is I never ever 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 want to do another test in my life. I don't want to be examined ever again in my life, and I hate doing tests. I never want to do it. For me, it's much better to just say like, "Rich, there you go. This is what you got to do. Go out and speak to these people. This is their role. This is what they do. This is how this works." I learn so much better that way, and as a result, that's jetpacked me onto whatever I want to achieve. What I'm achieving now, what I'm doing now, and in the future. So yeah, I got those
Yeah.
skills from being at Deloitte and doing that apprenticeship rather than going to uni for sure.
And I also feel that on this question of university, right? A lot of people, like children at that age, they really don't know what they like and what they want to do in the next phase of life. They don't have a calling yet, and they just feel that okay, I'm going to this university, and while I'm there, probably I will become a person, and I will figure out what I like and what I don't like, because that is where you evolve into a little bit more, you get to know yourself more in that setup when you are independent. At least that happened with me when I went to the university. I'm not doing anything close to what I studied in the college, but I kind of figured what my calling is. But if you already have the calling before even going to the university and you know what you want to do, I think even then going to university with intention would be actually better. If you feel that that is what happened with you, Richard, right? That maybe that was not the place that you would have got what you got at Deloitte. So in that case, for you it actually worked out better to not skip that and then go directly to a professional setup.
Yeah, I always say there's no rules really. There's no one way on how to do this, and it's whatever works best for you. Don't go to university for the sake of just going. I agree. The one thing I always say is that yeah, even if you go and study something and you don't use it in later life, fine. But what it teaches you is, as you just said, living independently, getting out of your comfort zone, being able to form brand new connections at an older age, going out and trying new things and figuring out what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. That is still so, so valuable in terms of forming who you are as an individual. I guess it's a bit of a blessing and a curse for me in that I know down to the finest degree what I want out of my life in every single stage. And yeah, it's great in terms of I can work towards that, but it's also like terrifying every day when I'm not there. So yeah, I think the people who maybe don't know at that age and are still exploring and are still trying things, 100% it makes sense to go to university as well because you do get a qualification at the end of it. And why would you just go to a job for the sake of just going to a job if it's going to make you sad and unhappy and so on? There's got to be there's no one size fits all and there's no rules and nothing's going to be perfect, nothing's going to be entirely horrible. So it's just a case of understanding what your options are, which is going back to what we were saying earlier around starting a business or doing an apprenticeship, whatever. You need to know what your options are. But yeah, I definitely see the value in university. Like we've all said, for me it wouldn't have made any sense. I would have just spent 3 years paying a massive student loan off and doing a degree that I probably would have scraped by the end of it because I would have barely turned up to the lectures or barely done any of the work. Would have maybe got another job off the back of it that would have kept me, maybe I would have done the year at Deloitte after 3 years of university, which means that I would finished like 2 years ago or a year and a bit ago, and then I would only be where I was at 19, 20, where I am
Oh,
now.
yes.
So like, it's and maybe, you never know. The one thing I always think is like, if everything falls through, the way that I look at it, and the thing that terrifies me is if everything all falls through, I've not got a uni degree to fall back on. I don't have that qualification to fall back on. So, there is maybe a level of insurance policy with that where if I had gone to uni and got an accounting and finance degree or whatever, got something that would have been an insurance policy for me, an expensive one at that I now don't have. There is definitely pros and cons and there's going to be in every decision you make. It's just figuring out which way is the most weighted in your favor.
That's great. I think, yeah, this itself will be like a standalone episode on like, hey, should I go to university or not? Now let's go to the startup mode. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Let's talk about your first startup. Yeah,
So yeah, I wanted to actually get into a little bit on like when you were at Deloitte, and then you started something called Venue, right? Where did this idea come, and how did this evolve into an actual plan? What was it during the time when you were actually in Deloitte, or did this happen after you quit Deloitte?
Yeah, no, it was definitely during Deloitte. I was like that, like I said, I was the personality hire there, and it was just like I had to organize the work socials and events and that kind of thing. And this was my first taste of the whole problem solution piece where the business stuff I had done previously, which is why I was saying I had no foundation. I was just kind of winging it, and there's no one to kind of guide me. This was the first taste of like problem solution that I had in that organizing those work socials and events was just such a drag, and it was so difficult and so long and so much back and forth and wasted time and poor communication. So I was like, okay, problem here. And I didn't even know that this was the formula I was going through in my head, but I was just like, oh, problem here, how do I make this better? How does this work? And I foolishly just like went straight head into it. And I say foolishly because at the time it was bad. Maybe with hindsight, it was actually a good thing. But yeah, I just went, right, let's build it. Let's build the solution. No market research, nothing. I was like, oh, I haven't heard of anything that does this. Therefore, nothing exists, which is the worst market research you can possibly do. But yeah, it stemmed from that lived experience of trying to organize stuff and then kind of realizing how difficult it was unnecessarily and thinking, okay, let's build a solution. And yeah, that's where it came from and kind of ran with it after that.
interesting.
Interesting. So you identified a problem, and then you said that, I'll just go and solve this problem, and you dived into it. That's quite
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, I it's easy for me to say the whole problem solution stuff now because I know about problem solution, like solve a hair on fire problem for a startup idea. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. I wasn't sat there thinking, oh, this is a problem and this is how you build a startup in that you identify a problem, a hair on fire problem that's really painful for a lot of people and they'll pay to get it fixed. I didn't know that. I just thought, oh, this this is a pain. Nothing exists. I could build a business around this. And I was purely just looking at Airbnb basically does the same thing for vacation rentals. So the model must work. So let's try it. So again, it was completely uneducated in regard to the founding of a business. But yeah, it was that first taste for me of problem solution. And then, yeah, it started from there. But yeah, so many lessons from that.
Walk us through that journey. Like, so how long were you at it? How big the business grew? How big the team grew?
So many mistakes. It was so bad. Like started off, wasn't aware what a co-founder was or a CTO or any of this stuff. Just thought, oh, I've got this idea. Let's pay a dev shop and they'll build it for me. And then that particular one ended up really, really badly. And this was before the days of Lovable and so on. It was just like
Of
a
course.
build a product. And that was so bad because it was meant to be a 3-month project and it ended up being about 2 years to build it. And I ended up in
Wow.
lawsuits and court and everything. And again, that all came from poor education on my behalf. I didn't know. And what would have been better is if I found someone that was in my network or that I knew that was doing computer science or was a software developer and said, I've got this idea, let's go 50-50 and go from there. Because as a result, what happened was we started building it and it was just taking so long. I started whilst I was in Deloitte, kind of the beginning of 2019, and it was building and building and building. And we didn't have anything then up until sort of the middle back endish of 2020, which was COVID heavy, and our startup was in the hospitality world. So it was just like absolute nightmare. You've launched this hospitality tech startup, and the hospitality world has gone to sleep entirely because of COVID.
Yeah, yeah. So is it like by the time you got the product to the market, COVID has already hit, and you couldn't scale the product at all? Like you couldn't take it to the customers at all?
No, we could. It just took so long, and it was just such long. It was just ridiculous, and partly, again, my fault, lack of education, not knowing about validating a product before building it, not knowing about get it. Like for me now, if I was to start a new business, I wouldn't start a business unless I knew names on the paper who the first 10 customers would be. I didn't have 10 names on the paper of who's gonna buy this product when I sell it and know for a fact that they're gonna buy it, as in they've said to me, "Yeah, I'll buy that." I wouldn't start the business because that's the level of validation that I'd now require to start something. And if I don't have that amount of buy-in, I won't do it. But yeah, in terms of getting that product to market, like one of the hardest lessons I've ever learned in my life. It was just an
This is a
absolute
lesson.
nightmare. Yeah, it was really tough in terms of I was just like emailing people these really long emails about why they should use stuff and just wasn't valuable. I was getting on the phone, but not really knowing. It's like, oh, hi, can I come in for a meeting and come and chat with you and speak to you about what we're doing? And again, rubbish, like that's not going to work. So it was really, really difficult. And I mean, appreciative of those lessons and that you have to have them at some point, right? Like you have to go through that and you have to get it wrong. But I feel like there's more that can be done to push people through that earlier. But the point being is that that was my kind of original go to market. But through a lot of iterating and understanding and getting things wrong, I started to whittle down on who actually uses us as a product, who's our best kind of genre of customer, our ICP, ideal customer profile. It got to the point of that it was, I'll try and remember this. It was executive assistants and personal assistants at companies with 20 or more employees, and they held socials around once a month. So it was that kind of we're diving into that niche. And then once I'd identified that and what they were using it for, and we could shape the product a bit more around that, it was then when I started looking at, okay, I've been tailoring this to anyone and everyone who wants to maybe book an event or book a corporate social, book something, be it a birthday party, anything. Oh, use this if you're booking an event. When I figured out, okay, this is where we need to go with it with these EAs and
Sorry,
PAs.
how did you find that they are your ICPs as you are like doing like this pray and pray kind of mode?
Yeah, and it just resonated. I spoke to the venues that we work with, and they were like, "Oh, most of our bookings are corporate, and we'd like to get more corporate." And they were like trying to just get as many corporate bookings as possible. So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, there's someone that you're clearly going after, and that you clearly enjoy having." And then I was like, "Okay, that's maybe an angle I can look at. Let me try and get a load of conversations." Just jumped on LinkedIn, tried to get as many conversations with EAs and PAs as I possibly could. Started off just by sending a message saying, "Hey." At this point, I was a lot more mature in terms of understanding how these conversations work. So I would just send a message that was like, "Hey, uh, saw you're hey, I know you're an EA, PA, whatever. Just a really quick question, working on something. Do you have this problem? Or when you do this, how do you do it? Or just stuff that would give me an idea of where like they were in terms of the problem, what they did to solve it currently, how much of an issue it was for them. And then you start to build, okay, there's clearly a use case for these people with what we've built here. So then did that, realize that EAs and PAs are the way forward for us.
Understood.
So then
And yeah, just trying to understand this. So you are not directly going and selling your product. You are trying to understand their problem and see
yeah.
if this is something that will be useful, and then you are trying to pitch it to them. Yeah, is that correct?
It
Yeah.
was almost like retrospectively doing the customer validation and the market research where I didn't do it beforehand. I just said, "Oh, this is
Sure,
a good idea."
sure.
I was like, "Oh, okay, now we have to let's take a step back and realize that we're selling this to someone at some point. So let's figure out who that person is." And was then doing the market research after the product was built. Yeah, luckily got
Right.
to the point where we knew that it was EAs and PAs that used the product or use a service like this. So then we started to look at, okay, where can we get big groups of these people? So I always say, it's easier to jump on the back of someone else's traffic than it is your own. And there were big groups for executive assistants and personal assistants, like big communities, big unions, that type of thing. So then the focus became, let's not just get one or two EAs on at a time. Let's work with these big communities and these big unions and then onboard them from there. So that's where it kind of started to go after that.
So when you started reaching out to these EAs and PAs, this is a cold reach out, right, on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
how did that go? Because like I'm very interested in knowing how do you reach out to people who you don't know, make them answer your questions? Like was this easy or did you get enough responses? What is the kind of strategy that you were looking at when you were reaching out?
But you have to be as personable as you possibly can. When you're looking for feedback from people like these EAs and PAs, you cannot just draft a mass message and just send the same structure out to everyone. It has to be you have to be very deliberate. Like I would just spend hours on end just like filtering through all the EAs and PAs that I'm connected with, and then writing a personal message to each one just to show them that I'm a real person. And then from there, it was like, okay, like how do you write this so you're not asking for anything in terms of a meeting, or they're very clear straight away that you're not asking for their time really or any money from them or trying to sell them anything. You're literally just saying, I just need some help. That's all. And it's 2 seconds worth of help. So the first part was you have to play on some form of familiarity in that whether you're saying like, "Hey, I'm just like if I was just I'm based in Cardiff. I was just messaging EAs and PAs in Cardiff. Hey, I'm a local guy from Cardiff. I'm a young founder. I just want to understand a bit more about what it's like to be an EA, particularly around this." And then from there, you've got to position yourself as actually wanting to help the EA or PA or whoever the customer is yourself. So I'm a local guy. I'm not this big corporation or this big tech giant. I'm a local entrepreneur founder speaking to local people, and I just want to make your life easier. But I want to know how you do this or how this works for you or any issues that you've had with this. And then generally, as long as it's like a really simple way for them to reply, they'll just say, "Oh, yeah, experience that problem, use this, or try to use this, didn't like it, or this is the issue that I face." And honestly, I reckon I got like a 70 or 80% response rate from that because I played on the local card and then I just made it like super easy to answer and I positioned myself as like just trying to help them. And
Yeah.
then from there, then you could ask, "Oh, I know you're connected to X, Y, and Z. Would you mind if you could ask them the same for me and get some feedback and any other friends that you have at EAs or PAs that you can ask so I can just increase my feedback volume." So yeah, it's just how you
Got
position
it.
yourself.
So yeah, that's great. I mean, that is very helpful because you are basically positioning yourself as someone who is in need or like wants some help and is not really like approaching to buy to sell something or to ask for money, right? And those kind of emails or in mails just bounce. I mean, people don't really respond to those emails.
Yeah. When it's entirely
Great. So
cold like
then,
that, you've got to go straight in as like just a conversation. Nothing is a sales meeting. Nothing. Everything is a feedback position. I have a friend who runs a jerky company and he was a bit nervous and he was just doing a lot of cold outreach on Instagram, like trying to Instagram message people and stuff. And I said, no, like you're a local lad, you're a young guy, you've got your own startup. His customer is like farm shops and food places. So I said, go into these places, like, say hello, introduce yourself, you're a nice guy. It's not a sales meeting. Go in there, ask how they find products they stock. What's the stocking process for them? What kind of products are they looking to stock over the next 6 months? What sells really well in their store? Just get some feedback from the process and get to know them and have that relationship with them. And then at the end, bring some samples with you and say, Cool, this is my brand. We'd love to see what you think about it. And if there's something there, then great." But what you've done then is you've removed the idea in your head as well of this being a sales pitch and it has to go right. And you've removed the pressure from their end of like, "Oh, this is person that asks me for money at the end. I don't really want to give money straight away." Blah, blah, blah." You go in there, you ask for feedback, you get to know the process better, get to know the person, they get to know you,
yeah.
and then kind of the gloves come off a bit and it's a bit like, it's more informal, it's not this big formal sales pitch.
Interesting, Richard. But I think, do you think this approach will work for like a consumer startup also? I think when you is more of a B2B startup, right? Like you were selling to businesses. Do you think this similar idea will work for a consumer startup also?
Yeah, even more so because ultimately
Okay.
the B2B stuff is like my sales cycles right now are B2B. Everything I do right now is B2B. And it is like longer sales cycles. You go through multiple people. It's a completely different thing. And there's budget allocated and at the end of the day, if that budget is allocated poorly, that then reflects on the person's end of year review, and if the end of year review doesn't go well, they might end their job type thing. So there's a lot more to it when it comes to B2B. B2C is just the person, right? Like, and ultimately, you do the B2C stuff within the B2B, and there's so much more to the B2B. And that first conversation that you have with someone when it's B2B, you're still just selling to a person. You're talking to a person, but then as the layers peel back, there's so much more. With B2C, you're just speaking to that person, and there's no other layers behind it. There's no like annual budget reviews. There's no
Makes
performance
sense.
review.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They just got to see that you're a legit nice person,
Yeah.
and you're just looking to build a relationship with them so that you can actually get the best out of what you're putting together. I think it works even better with B2C than it does B2B.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So this is the engineer mindset in me, right? Like, so as an engineer building product, like I'm always like, hey, people don't need to know about me. They should only know the product. Yeah, the product should speak for itself. Like that's like the mindset that we are sort of
That's
on.
also the introvert in you talking. Like a lot of us are also like very introvert. So when I am building something, I want to showcase, what I have built, but I don't want to showcase myself because like that is me putting myself out there. Sometimes I'm a little bit scared of, putting myself out there, but I guess that is what it takes, right? To connect with our customers.
Consumer behavior has changed massively, right? Because that's the big word there is trust. There's so much rubbish on the internet these days, like fake ads, bad product, AI now making things completely you just see these adverts that aren't real. So you need to have some trust. Where everything is bought online, where is the trust factor in that online transaction? That's through someone that you've engaged with, albeit through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, for a long period of time, saying, yes, this is right. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do for startups and business, right? Like we're trying to be that trusted name that people can trust to buy from, or like as the influencer almost in that section. But yeah, I definitely think as a founder, it's becoming more and more important to just be face out.
So I don't know. As we're at this topic, is there any advice you would give for like introverts like us on, hey, how do we get out of this pressure and put ourselves out? I
Yeah,
think it feels like you're a natural.
it's interesting though because people always assume that about me, and I recently turned around to myself and said that I need to start like I need to compliment one stranger a day is something that I'm like working on at the moment and building up the courage to do, because what I'm good at is when I'm in a conversation with someone or I know someone, I can speak for hours. I have no problem at all. But I'm not good enough at approaching random people. I'm not good enough at it. So I need to get better at it. But I would say that the one thing that is great as a in any walk of life, whoever you are, whatever your kind of outgoingness is like, if you can start a community, just a small community of people who are in your world, it's just a great way of like getting that first touch into, okay, well, these are my people. How do I bring more people in? Oh, this is just another way of me building that community, or this is just another version of what I've built here. I'm doing it with this instead. So if you can just get something of a community going with people who are, similar development space to yourself or similar market to yourself, or even if it's outside of work altogether, just a hobby of, if you like football, if you like cricket, if you like Sabrina Carpenter, whatever it is, if you've got a group of people that you have something in common around, and that can even be like a Facebook group or a Reddit thread, whatever it is. Just start something off the back of that. It just gets you in the position of, okay, I've got this ability to connect with strangers, with people that I don't know over something. And then it's a muscle. Literally, that's all it is. It's a muscle. Once you start going, you can just get it up and running. It becomes natural to you. The whole introvert extrovert thing is interesting to me, and it's something that I'm still like learning about and making decisions upon and trying to understand it. But I think that everyone can be extroverted, but you just need different circumstances to do it. And it's just finding out what are those circumstances that enable you to become more extroverted. Because Barlow, when you came to our event that we hosted, and you're speaking to loads of people. You just called yourself an introvert, but I saw you speaking around and you came up to me and you asked if I could jump on this. And, that to me is, okay, this is a circumstance. There's a load of people here who are building and doing stuff. You're in and around your tribe almost. Therefore, you feel maybe more comfortable to make
Exactly.
those
Yeah.
and go.
Yeah.
It's how do you find that tribe? And if you can't make it yourself, does it exist elsewhere that you can get in?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I think, yeah, let's complete the story on venue. Like,
Yeah. They're on venue, right? So maybe I mean maybe you want to move a little bit forward from like how you from like while you were at when you were trying to build venue, what happened eventually, and then you decided to move on from there, right? So what were the lessons and what were the top things that you learned there, and then maybe from there, how did you decide that this is the time to pivot or to move on to something else?
Yeah, I mean, big lesson number one that I mentioned earlier around having the highest level of validation that you possibly can before starting something, e.g., having those 10 customers in line straight away before you build anything. That is number one big lesson. Second piece is don't spend loads of money on it until you've got to a place where you know you've got something. Like if you can put £1 in and know you get £3 out, that's when you can start spending loads of money. Don't feel like you have to go in and spend a full whack, which again, I did. I made that mistake. I spent a lot trying to put that together. So
You spent on marketing. What is it that you spent money on?
with the dev shops
For
and
building.
stuff,
Ah, okay, got it.
is why I wish that, like, I just wish I had a co-founder. I just wish that I knew someone early doors that could build it with me and I can build it with. So yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend getting a co-founder. Less
You
important now.
raised money for venue, or is it?
Yeah, so we eventually went into a fundraise. So it took us a long time to actually get anywhere. COVID, bad product, etc., etc.
Mm.
It's taken ages to get our first bit of cash through the door from a sale, but we eventually got there in 2023. Yeah, it's 25 now, 2023. So that the first quarter of 2023, we ended up doing a quarter of a million in gross merchandise value. So we did like 250K transactions in Q1 23. And that's then when we went to fundraise. So we went to do a pre-seed round and it was mostly angel money with one VC in there, which was like I eventually managed to get a co-founder on. So that changed the game entirely. So big shout out to him, Rohan. He was honestly genius. Like I would hire him in an instant a million times over. Like he was fantastic. So he came on and changed the game and just like could quickly change the product as and when we needed to rather than going through a dev shop. So yeah, that was a big difference. But then that first quarter we made that 250 GMV. And then when we went for the raise, we went for a quarter of a million pre-seed round. And it took a while, it took a long time, and we were just grafting through it. And we got there in the end, but we didn't actually end up taking the money on. Just
Mhm.
said, look, like I knew truthfully and honestly, like I knew that I wasn't going to take it anywhere further than what we already had. I knew that if I took that quarter of a million pound of, like I say, mostly angel money, so mostly people's personal cash, I would burn through it very quickly and not grow enough to justify taking that cash on. Therefore, we'd be in trouble, and it would just be like such a waste of cash. We decided like let's. Oh God.
Sorry, I was going to ask, like, why did you? How did you conclude that you will not grow this business beyond this point?
So we had what we're trying to do is automate a process. We're trying to automate that booking process. Just couldn't do it. I mean, maybe it'd be different in today's AI capabilities, but at the time, it's just such a bespoke process. Everything is so independent of the individual booking. It's not as simple as book a table for 4 at 6 p.m. There's just so many unique requirements that what we were trying to automate, where we did that quarter million GMV, that was
Mhm.
all me in the background, like booking stuff for
Got
everyone,
it.
jumping on the phone, doing all this stuff. So the product that we were trying to build fundamentally did not exist. And what we were trying to raise did not exist. And we did not really know how we could go from that to let's like we're this and now we've got this fully automated thing that works exactly how we want it. We didn't know how we could do that. And I wasn't personally comfortable taking on that money when I didn't
Yeah.
know that. And I'm gonna sit here and lie and say,
But that's great. That's another brave decision, right? Like when you had the ability to like money in front of you and you understood the challenges, the ability to not be able to not scale and not took the money. That's very, very interesting. Yeah. So
and
that's
I'm
how
I
you
mean,
very
pivot.
glad I made that decision. Yeah. It was also like we said earlier about feelings and emotions and so on. I was dead. I was absolutely finished at that point. I had lost every ounce of belief in the business. To some degree, I lost every ounce of belief in myself to execute as well. I just thought I'm not the right person to build this business. It's not me. I am not the right individual for this. And that was really important to be able to accept and acknowledge that in that this business isn't the right fit for me. And that doesn't mean that I'm then bad at this and I won't have a future in it. It's just not the right founder fit for this business. I didn't know that industry at all. I had no background. I had made so many like deep mistakes quite early on that had been pretty painful further down the line that meant we were held back so much. So, in terms of my emotional state at that point, I was just shattered. I was mentally exhausted. I had no other ideas. I really didn't want to pursue it any further. So whilst I can sit here and say, yeah, like I knew we weren't going to take it any further and I didn't want to take the money on, there's also an element of I'm finished here. Like I have given it everything. Like I lost my girlfriend at that point. Like I split up with my girlfriend. I've been through years of COVID where I was at that point still in my mum's house. So I was stuck in my mum's house with my mum. I was only 21, 22, and obviously COVID happened, everything shut down. So I was stuck in there, and that was really difficult for me. And it just felt like everything had come in. And I look at that period of venue as that was my university, that was my life where I was like, okay, this is where I've learned everything, and this is where I've got all my mistakes out. In the reality of things, it was actually cheaper than university. That was my point of like, that was my point of like, okay, this is your education on what you want to go into. And funnily enough, we speak about like making that decision and cutting it off and thinking, right, I'm done here. I'm not going to take this any further. It was at that point, and this was the first point in my entire life up until then, that as soon as I closed that company and I clicked finish, send the email out to everyone, say we're closing, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to be in startups for the rest of my life. Because as soon as that weight had lifted off my shoulders, I was like, I actually love this and I'm going to get straight back in and get stuck back in. So that like absolute exhaustion, the point of exhaustion, the point of closing down that business that I'd put so much into over the last few years was the first point in my life where I knew I'm going to be in startups and do something in startups for the rest of my life because I love it.
That's
How did you go from there to there? Like, okay, I have so many questions right now. So, I mean, I'll start with this, right? You spoke about founders market fit, and a lot of people have different opinions about that. And earlier, Bala and I were also talking that a lot of times people think that someone who understands the market can do better, but there is conflicting opinion as well, where you don't know much about the market, but you can still do better because you then think from outside the market and from a consumer's point of view. So I just wanted to pick your brain on that one, that like what is your thought process on founders market fit, and do you think people who understand the market should be the only ones starting something in that, or is it does it depend really on like case to case? So just want to understand what you think about this.
I think if you haven't had a successful business before, you have to be in a market that you know. Because if you've not done it before and you've not gone through the process where you built and sold it, you have to be in a market that you know so you can actually earn your stripes and get in there and understand it. However, if you've built and sold a business successfully, then you know how it works. Because ultimately, building a business is a mechanism, if you will. It's not a case of course, there's luck involved, but you then know, okay, well, I know that I have to get these customers, I have to validate this, I've noticed this problem, I have to go and speak to this person, then I have to do this. And okay, I understand there's a bit of a pattern here. Whilst it's not always, the same thing, you understand there's a pattern. Like, so a good example of that is Lucky Palmer, the guy who now founded Andrew, and he had Oculus beforehand. They sold Oculus to Facebook.
Sorry, who?
Lucky Palmer. So
Okay.
he's Silicon Valley boy, really really young. Built Oculus, sold it to Facebook for 1 billion, I think it was. As a ridiculously young guy, but he knew that like he loved VR, he loved the whole headset stuff. Like he was super super in that world, and he built in that world. And then if you see interviews of him after he ended up getting kicked out of Facebook for political stuff. But if you see videos of him afterwards and people say to him, how did you go from VR, which was your bag, to defense tech and building a multi-billion-dollar defense tech company? And there's a video of him, I think it was on My First Million, and he's
okay.
basically saying, like, I realized he was like, I wanted to solve a massive problem, a global massive problem. I wanted to be in a market that was that would impact the planet, not just like a big market. This is something I want to go. If it's not huge, I'm not going to do it. And he had like 3 or 4 options. There was like something to do with shipping. They had the defense tech, obviously. He had 3 or 4 that were just not his bag at all. But the difference is he's gone and built a billion-dollar company before. Therefore, he understands the mechanisms and how it works going from 0 to a billion. So he can go and do that in a market that he doesn't know. But I feel for me, like I can't really operate, you know. If you told me to go and build a business now in I don't know, like sewing. I don't know anything about sewing. I don't have the first clue about sewing. Whilst I feel like I would be better now to do it because I, to some degree, know the mechanisms, I could get to maybe a certain stage, but I couldn't build a big successful business because I don't know how to do it in a market that I know. So going into a market that I don't know makes it a lot harder. So I feel like the first one that you do that is a success, there has to be that founder market fit. However, once you've got that first success, the world's your oyster. You can go into other markets.
Interesting.
I had a question on that. Richard, you mentioned when you were at your lowest point or like after exiting, you felt a lot of confidence that this is what you are going to continue doing for the rest of your life. That
I had
feels
the same.
very counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, people would want to quit and oh man, like I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah, I can't even I would love to be able to explain it, but I can't. I really don't know. But honestly, the second after I hit close, basically, finish, it just happened. I was like, "Oh, cool, like, I'm definitely gonna be in this world for the rest of my life." I love it. And I am, like, I am obsessed. I am absolutely obsessed to the degree I cannot think about anything else. If I'm in bed before I go to sleep, I have to go to sleep every night, and I have to try and build football teams in my head to try and get to sleep, because otherwise my brain is just doing this about startups and business and everything, and I can't sleep. So that the level of obsession that I have is crazy. But yeah, I wish I could sit here and explain what it was, but I think maybe I'll try. Maybe what it was like I knew that I was building the wrong company, but I was doing the right thing. So this was the opportunity of, okay, I've got rid of that company now. I can build the right thing. I can go off and do something that I do know. So maybe that was what it was. Maybe I just felt like I know I'm
Yeah.
going to be in this world, and I've got rid of the one that isn't serving me right now, and I can now start afresh. I'm ready to go again. I've learned all this stuff, and I don't have all the like dangling bits of this company that I've kind of forged together and merged and kind of scraped in. I've got rid of that, and I can start clean slate and go again with everything that I know and all the people I know now. So maybe that was it. I don't know for sure, but for me, that feels like the most logical explanation.
I also have an explanation as a founder, like having shut down a business. Yeah. I think it's what I would call the fear of failure, right? Like once you've seen the bottom, you know what the bottom feels like, and then you're ready to face it. Yeah. You're not afraid of it. Yeah.
I am, yes, like I'm not. I don't know how to word this, but I'm not afraid of failing to the level where I won't try something in case I
Yeah.
fail. I'll do everything. I don't care. If I want to do it, I'll do it. It doesn't bother me. I will go out. I'll make a TikTok video. I'll speak on a stage. I'll write a whatever, how many thousand word document. I'll do it. Like I don't care. But I'm also at the same time terrified of failure in that, like, for me, in my life, failure is not an option. Like I can't sit here and go and get a job and a career and then not go and achieve what I want to achieve because I can't sit here and think of that as an option. I cannot. So in that way, I'm terrified of this not
Sure.
working out, but I'm
Sure.
not scared of getting it wrong and looking
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah. 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 That's great.
Interesting.
That's great.
You don't care, you would do things, you don't really mind failing, but you are terrified of failure.
Yeah,
That is
yeah. That's probably a good
also
way to say it.
interesting. So
Okay.
then when you got over and you said you will always be the entrepreneur that you were. So when did how did you think about the new idea and how did you launch your
So I literally closed the last one, and then I went on a holiday for 5 days. A few friends of mine, I got some Cypriot friends, so I went out to Cyprus for 5 days, and I did nothing. I had no work, I had no commitments, nothing. Just went out there and relaxed. And then when I came back after that, a friend of mine approached me and he said, "I," he's like, I want to start writing a newsletter." And I was like, "Okay, that's interesting." And he's like, "We had some ideas for it in terms of getting the first customers, building the first product. How do you speak to founders and get that information across?" And that's how it started. And when I was raising money for my last company, the venue company, we did this pitch day, and it was on the rooftop of Google's HQ in London. So we did this big demo day, and loads of VCs there. It was crazy, really crazy. But there was one fund there that had a really bad name in the circles of London. But me being outside of London, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they had a bad name and they behaved badly. And when they came straight over to us, they were all over us. Afterwards, you had a bit of a founder debrief, and all the other founders that were pitching said, "You're not from London, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm from Cardiff." They said, "Yeah, don't go. We saw that that firm was all over you. Don't go with them. They behave badly." So we had this idea of how do you get the information of how all these founders, successful founders, got their first customer, built their first product. But then there's also a big knowledge gap from founders in London to founders outside of London. So we just started from there. It's like, okay, well, how do we use this newsletter as a vehicle to get that education across? And yeah, from there, we just started writing that newsletter. And just like a year and a half on, that format has changed pretty significantly in terms of what we put in there and how it happens. But all it started off as a friend approached me to just write a newsletter. And then, yeah, it kind of spiraled from there. We started writing it, and everything else has come as a result.
Yeah, you started as a newsletter, then all these startup events. Yeah, so what is this primary business now? Like, yeah, I just know it as this events where like you are bringing all the founders together. What exactly is this business? Innovators
So
Uncensored.
So we're a media company, and we sell advertising space. That's how we operate as a business. So we produce this newsletter. We've got a show that we produce called Shark, Snakes, and Shareholders, which is an investor red flag show. It's investor horror stories that we put out there, and we do these events. And across each of them, we sell advertising space, whether that's event sponsorship or yeah, just straight advertising space in the newsletter. So yeah, we are a media company, long term building a venture fund that we can use a media company as a kind of go to market strategy for the companies that we invest in.
Yeah, 2 years into this journey now, like what's been the learnings? How is this growing? Yeah, what are some of the interesting stories here?
Yeah, I mean, every day is a lesson. Every day is a learning day, 100%. I am learning pretty heavily at the moment. So, the first piece of like validation that we had in terms of okay, this can be a business. Funny that the first customer that we got that advertised with us came from a Facebook group. So just posted the newsletter in a Facebook group for entrepreneurs, and someone said, "Oh, I'd like to advertise in that." So we charged them, I think, £50 for the month of advertising, and that's where it got off the ground. So that was my first taste of like, okay, I can sell this advertising space, and kind of spiraled out from there. Yeah, it's the idea was literally just the newsletter in the first place, right? And it's kind of just gone from there in terms of, oh, well, we had the newsletter and we're like, okay, we're based in Cardiff, and naturally there's a lot of people from Cardiff who subscribe to the newsletter. So we thought, okay, well, how do we get all these people in a room? It's all these great people building cool stuff. How do we get them in a room together? So we put together our first event, and I think we had 70 odd people turn up to the first one in Cardiff. And then we sort of just kept doing them, and we're getting 300 odd people sign up to our Cardiff event, so crazy, crazy numbers. And then thought, okay, well, let's move into somewhere else. So we tried Bristol. We started building up in Bristol. We've done a few in Bristol now, and alongside that, a couple of video things, like I mentioned, the show that we've got, and so on. So it's kind of just like taking this path of where the opportunity takes us, and the idea for it is formed over time. So that's an interesting point, right? In that we started this business as just like oh, this will be fun to write, and it's kind of we've let it lead us in a way, and now I feel very much in control of it. But at the start, it was like, let's see where this goes. Let's see what happens from this. And we didn't have a fully fledged up. Now we do, but we didn't. So that has been a big learning to me. And that if you had told me to write a business plan for this company, and we're doing really well at the moment, and we're growing really well, and we've got some crazy customers, and from a financial point of view, we're doing well. So it's a good business. And if you told me to write a business plan at the start of this business, it would not look anything like what I've built today. So it's just like the lesson there is that there's no real plan that you can put together for something like this. There is a degree of letting the market dictate where you're going and what you're building, what you're doing.
That's funny, right? Like, I mean, yeah, when you go to pitch, yeah, you project your 5-year plan and your exit strategy and all that. Like, and it sounds so ridiculous to create that deck when you are on like day zero of building your
Yeah.
business, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah, so that is what I want to probe that a little bit, right? There is always like a element of uncertainty when you are starting something, and you're always. And this is what people also preach, right? That be ready to, be flexible, be ready to pivot, learn, and change. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there are these VCs and investors who are asking for high level of clarity on what we are trying to do and what is our plan going forward and how are we going to make money going forward, and things like that, right? So how does being a founder, and now that this is your second one, are there any learnings around that, and maybe like Bala, you can also pitch in. And I'm just curious that how do you like keep the balance between these two things?
as in keep the balance between having a plan and not
Uncertainty
really.
and having the plan, right?
One of the advisors I had from my last company, like super impressive guy, really really credible, and yeah, I would trust him with a lot of things. So he was the GM CEO of Airbnb UK and Europe, and then the global CEO of SeatGeek. So super credible guy, and he basically said to me that any forecast or any plan or anything, most investors will look at that not to say this might not happen or that might not happen, but more so just to see, does this person think with logic and can they put a plan together? Can they strategize? Can they forecast to a level where, okay, their ambition is correct and what they're trying to achieve is aligned with what we're trying to invest in as a fund? But do they think with clarity? Is there a good strategy? So if stuff goes wrong and something goes crazy and it all falls in, do they have the ability to sit there and think, right, okay, I can rebuild a plan here? So don't necessarily look at it as, okay, this is how it has to happen, and they're looking to find the perfect plan. They're not. They're just looking to see, how do you think as an individual? How do you plan things? How do you see yourself like achieving stuff? What level of achievement are you going for? What's the size you're going for? So as soon as you
Hmm.
recognize that and realize that, you start to get a bit of clarity. I mean, ultimately, there's two things that matter in terms of, is there a problem that you're solving, and are you the team that's able to do it? Because even the whole market size thing, right? Like, obviously, you want to be in a big market, but the whole market size thing isn't necessarily like a good indicator, in that the best market to invest in is a very small market that's growing very fast. Not a big multi-billion dollar market that has multiple incumbents in already. You can turn around and say, I could say, oh, the media market is worth X amount of billions of dollars, which it probably, well, it will be, 100% it will be. That's a massive market. But there's so many players in it, and there's so many people doing so many different things. What you want to be in is in a market that is small, and you can take a good share of it early on, but it's growing, so you stamp yourself as the authoritative company in that. Other than that, the two key indicators are you solving a problem, and are you the right team to do it? And that's where the whole, like, how does this person think? How do they plan? How do they strategize comes into it, rather than, is this the plan that's gonna do it? Because as you both know, with startups, and what I've just said in terms of where this started and where it is now, it doesn't go to plan. It just by nature does not go to plan. I would be so impressed. I would be so impressed if you showed me any big business that had nailed their business plan to a T from the outset. I would say I would applaud that and say fair play, because I just don't think it's ever happened. So I wouldn't put too on a business. And this is why I say to people all the time, there's so much support around where we are in Wales around, like, business support. And the first thing is always write a business plan. But you have to understand, like, why. Why they have to write it. Like, no investor I know or speak to ever, like, when I've raised money and now I'm in more investment circles, I don't know anyone that's ever asked for a business plan. The startups I've invested in, I've not even seen a pitch deck. I've not seen a pitch deck. I've just spoken with the founders and seen the product and understand, okay, I get the problem and I believe you have the ability to solve this problem. Here's my money. That's all. I don't need to see a big pitch deck or business plan or 5-year plan and forecast. I don't need to see that, because startups are inherently risky and they're inherently difficult to plan for, like, they're naturally difficult to plan for. Therefore, it's the person and the problem.
Exactly right. Like this is what I found different in a lot of the pitching events that I went to, on what the investors sort of expected and how every deck looked exactly same on what content was there and what kind of questions the investors asked. Maybe let's just take a step back and understand. So how is Innovators Uncensored becoming a VC firm? Like, or why is that? How did that pivot happen from a classic startup to media company to now like the investor?
So I've come to the conclusion that I will not build an innovative tech company. I won't do it. Like I don't have the ability. That's not where my skill set is. That's not where my ability lies. I will not build the next Facebook or the next. I won't build it because that's just not how my brain works and where my strengths are. What I am good at though is like strategy. What I am good at is like hands on the ground, doing the work, getting out there, doing the business. And I'm good at identifying the right people to do the right things. So for me, I love startups, and it just like the whole media side just started as a this is a cool vehicle for me to write about things that I enjoy and spread information and share stuff. Therefore, we just started a newsletter, and then from there it was like, okay, well, we've got this newsletter and we've produced this content that people are willingly purchasing advertisement placement on. So we've got a business here. Let's see what else we can do it on. So events, and then the video content, video media that we're doing, and just starting to think, okay, well, we've got some stuff here, and people are consuming this knowledge quite a lot, and they're enjoying it. So let's see where the holes are within startup content. And the issue that's absolutely covered all over startup content is that everything is so education focused, and everything is lectures on EBITDA and sales processes being shoved down people's throats. And going back to what we were saying right at the start, I cannot sit there and listen to people lecture me. I cannot do it. I need to be entertained. I need enjoyment. So how do you take startup content and the education side of things and actually make it fun, make it entertaining, so people come and watch it regardless of the subject matter, but just because they find it funny or interesting or exciting? And as a result, the kind of byproduct of that is that people become more and more comfortable with startups. They start to pick up lingo, and they start to understand, oh, I know what the SIS investment scheme is, or I know what liquidation preferences are, or I know what a share issue is. I just because this thing is really fun. So that's the whole idea. The first step into it was our Shark, Snakes, and Shareholders show, where instead of a lawyer talking, you take a term sheet and say, this clause means that, and this clause means that, and you don't want that clause, which is boring and has been done for so long. How do we get founders to anonymously submit horror stories they've had, bad clauses, really awful deals, bad behavior? Get that in there because that is juicy, it's interesting, and
Yeah.
people engage with that. And then we'll get some VCs on, we'll get some founders on, and we get them to like roast it in a way and talk about it and explain why these things are bad. It's not just a lawyer holding a term sheet. Bit of controversy, a bit of issue, and then we rank it on this red flag scale that we've got. So again, you can see just how bad that behavior is, and it's not me saying, "Oh, that's really bad behavior and you should avoid that." We're saying these guys, business butchers, they're the worst. You've got to avoid this behavior at all time. That is far easier to watch as a founder or someone that's not in that world because you make it more enjoyable. Yeah, we started off as, "Oh, we've got this information gap. How do we fix that?" And then we did it with the newsletter. We thought, "Okay, there's a lot more information that's as a kind of a wider perspective that people don't know that we can do stuff with there." So we started with that, and then the kind of idea is that, well, if we've got this audience of 3, 4, 5 million founders at some point, which is where we're aiming for the millions and millions of people that follow along, and we're just giving them all this resource. The newsletter we send out is full of investment opportunities, accelerator opening, everything in there, super useful for founders and people in this world. If we've built that relationship with them for 3, 4, 5 years, and they trust us and they see that, okay, Innovators Uncensored are a brand by founders, for founders, trying to help founders, and we platform businesses on there, ideally, that can lead to a lot of sales, and that's a go-to-market strategy that is super strong for anyone, regardless of where you are. So being in Cardiff, we are in a region way outside of London in terms of the finances and the access to buyers and international markets type thing. So how did we build this platform that whether you're in Cardiff or London or Scunthorpe or Glasgow, If you're on, if we can create some media around you, then you're exposed to millions of people who might buy from you and trust you because of the relationship that we have with them. And then what's the next step on top of that? It's how do we put capital into these businesses so not only can they capitalize on the sales, but they can actually just leapfrog and go crazy. And what you do then is you build this go-to-market strategy that just doesn't exist anywhere else. And if someone else wants to try and build it, it's going to take them 5, 6, 7 years. And at that point, we'll already be 5, 6, 7 years ahead of them. So it's just a case of this is a real idea for a game changer in terms of regional startups, wherever you are in the world, similar to what you guys are doing with this, right? Bangalore to the Bay and in between from London. How do you democratize that opportunity? How do you democratize that exposure? But also, bang, put a big check into them so they go to the moon. So that's where it's kind of journeyed along to where it is now.
Yeah. This is very interesting. I think the first time I heard something like this is 20 VC, right? Harry Stebbings. I don't think there is a similar equivalent in the Bay Area also, right? I think those VC firms are all classic firms. Now they are all coming into the media play, right? I think 20 VC is like the first media turned VC. I think this is like a new playbook. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, he's ultimately Harry Stebbings has ultimately led the way with this, and don't get me wrong, I'm definitely trying to do things very different to how he's done it. He's definitely on the end of these people have been uber successful. Ultimately, what he was doing was meeting other VCs and potential LPs to invest in his fund and build relationships with them, which is great. Like, and that's worked so well for him. And yeah, he has his critics. I actually really like him. I think he's done
I like him.
some.
Like I like his podcast. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got the right attitude and he wants to do the right things. And whether you like him as a person or not, I don't care. I think he's got the right attitude and he wants to do the right things for the ecosystem. So I really like him. I'm doing things differently in that he's got these like super experienced, successful people on there. I want to platform people at the other end of the journey, right at the start, and how do we turn them into these successful people? But yeah, it's just going back to what we were discussing earlier around people are buying from people, and if you're a founder, your face has to be on the brand because consumer behaviors change. So yeah, if we can, where it's difficult maybe for every founder to build a personal brand on TikTok, Instagram, or how can everyone do it? How do we just become the vehicle for that? So when you come onto our platform, you have that by default. It's the same as Dragon's Den, right? Like I saw the stats the other day. I don't know if you saw Perfect Ted and a matcha brand, and they went on Dragon's Den, and they did something like their month sales before they went on Dragon's Den. The month before they went on Dragon's Den, it was either £900 or £9,000. I thought it was 900, but I read the other day it was actually 9,000. But anyway, the month they went on Dragon's Den, which was the following month, their monthly sales shot up to 250K. So that's the impact that you have with something like this, where Dragon's Den is mass exposure to the right audience, and if you can replicate that with what we're trying to do and put a pretty big ticket into them, and I'm sure you guys know this, but when you watch Dragon's Den, and if you've pitched to investors in real life, you know that that's not a fair representation of what it actually looks like whatsoever. It's not real, and equally, the equity stakes that they take on there are horrific. They're disgusting. You see some people who basically going on there and they're giving away 50% of their business for like 20 grand, something ridiculous like that, which just shouldn't happen. Whilst it's good in terms of getting sales exposure, what it doesn't do is it doesn't paint a good example of what it really looks like. So how do we take that level of exposure and actually just show people what that this world is, and the idea then is that if we have people who are coming just because they're entertained in the content that we make, it's funny or it's intense or it's challenging, whatever it is, they enjoy watching it. They might not be in startups, but by the end of the time they've watched a few of our videos, they might know who a few exciting startups are and they might know how this works. And even if they don't go and build a company of their own, what they might be more comfortable doing is either buying from a startup or going to work from a startup or speaking about startups or maybe jumping on Crowdcube and putting some money in a startup, all of which develops the ecosystem further and opens up the pool of people that are engaged in startups. And the more and more that you can get bigger volumes of people engaged in startups, the better it's going to be for everyone. So yeah, that's the idea. And if we can platform them at the kind of early stages and put a big check into them, you make a big difference.
Great. That's great. So, and yeah, what else is cooking? What's coming in the future? Like in the beginning, you said something is brewing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, working on something now that means that like the fund was a 10-year goal and we're just shy of 2 years in. I don't want to wait another 8 years. So I'm working on something that enables me to hopefully start deploying capital pretty soon. And that's the idea. So I'm working away on that. And I think like I had to sit down and think about why I do all this stuff the other day and why my ultimate goal is what it is and why I want to pursue the things I want to pursue. And I think for me, the motivation I have is I want to just democratize and create as much opportunity as I possibly can. So everything I'm doing now is how do I use this to just create opportunity and spread it around as much as I possibly can to every corner of the globe, ideally, but just really push humanity forward as much as I possibly can. And I get that that's a pretty lofty goal and something big, but yeah, that's ultimately what I'm working on is how can I use myself and use what I'm building to just send as much opportunity around as possible.
No, I mean, I also wanted to, that brings me to the question of how you are looking at the whole prime minister dream now and what is your path towards that. But prior to that, Bala, if you want to cover something from this.
Yeah, I was going to ask like a small question on the Innovators Uncensored that you said that was the last event in Bristol and something bigger and better is coming. I just wanted to understand if that plan is sort of ready. What is next for Innovators Uncensored, the event side of things?
Still cooking away. I'm hoping to
Okay,
have it
cool.
like wrapped up and sorted sort of September, October time. But yeah, again, it all comes down to like how can we start deploying capital and how can we use these events to get actual capital into businesses. So that's probably the most that I can say on it at the moment. But yeah, just
Yeah, that's
trying
cool.
really hard to like just make a difference, make an actual impact.
Yeah, but because what I really liked about those events are like, say, most of the startup events are either pitching or like a tech talk or things like that, right? Like, but what founders really want is to talk to other founders and investors and get feedback on, right? I found this was the only event which gave as much time for networking, right? Which was not the case with any other event, like including the ones in Bay Area. So that's what I really liked. And this format was very unique. That's why I was sad that you were not going to continue. Yeah.
Well, we'll be back with them. They'll be back next year. They'll be back bigger and better. I think, like for me, maybe they'll be less frequent, but they
Okay.
will be more impactful. So
Sure.
there'll be more value to them, which is why I've had to slow them for now, just so I can absolutely get the most out of them next year. But yeah, they will be back and better than ever. But I appreciate the kind words, and I'm always happy to try and facilitate whatever I can to help people meet the right people and build the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to attend one of these
You're
while
always
I'm in
welcome.
Florida.
Your UK trip is pending, Pragati. You should make one.
Yeah.
But while you were talking about the whole vision on like where do you want to go, I heard a lot of talk around, enabling this for people who are not in like these prime cities, enabling this for people who are coming from a more humble backgrounds or coming from smaller cities and don't have access to information. All of this it's kind of leading me to, again, it feels like this is leading to a little bit more bigger dream. And because like we opened the episode with that dream, which is being a prime minister, I do want to figure out how you are thinking about that dream and like what do you think is your 5 or 10 year plan towards that.
Yeah, I mean, so my politics are based off economics. So for me, I think a strong country is built on a strong economy, and a strong economy is built from fast growth, innovative startups and companies that can build and create opportunity, which is the big driver for me. So as I just said, my whole thing is how do I democratize and create as much opportunity as possible. The ultimate vehicle for me to do that is prime minister and actually at the highest level there, but I want to have a positive, tangible, material impact on the UK economy. And the best way for me to do that is through what I know and love, which is startups. And that's platforming them in a way that doesn't exist currently, that enables people to build and get out in front of the right people, regardless of their location, regardless of their background, whatever it is. If you're building a cool company that can scale and do well, I will platform you and ideally it's not just anyone and everyone in that it's not like if you've got an idea, because there still has to be a quality control to it. But you know, the idea is how do you get the right people in front of the right people that makes a difference and actually grows the economy. The issue that I have at the moment is it just feels a lot of the time that we're focused on like we're not focused on wealth creation and opportunity creation. It just feels like there's a lot of punishment around innovation. There's a lot of punishment around building things. And I really don't like that. And I really, really, really want this to be a place where people come and build, and the best minds or the best athletes or the best musicians, the best in every field comes to this country because they think, wow, this if I'm gonna do something mega and I'm gonna do something major, this is the place to do it. This is where I'm going to really achieve what I can what I know I can achieve. So yeah, I want to use what I know as startups to create the kind of first ripple of that, and then how do I continue to do that across fields, and that's kind of getting it at that top level. But that is definitely the goal. I'm 25 now. I'll probably give myself 15 to 20 years, 40 to 45 to learn and like really experience as much as I possibly can. Invest in companies, build big companies, get the right people in, and then at that point of 40, 45, we go for PM.
That's great. I think what's really interesting is like people like you thinking about it is a great thing. One fundamental thing is like everybody should understand economics. Prime Minister should understand it very, very well. I think, yeah, probably I'll leave it at that.
No, I agree, and I agree in the right people should be in the right roles, and you it's the same as you look at like a startup. It feels like yeah, without getting too deep into it, but it feels like the government is built on you've put a marketing person as your HR person, you put a salesperson as your accountancy person, and it just feels mumbled. And ideally, what you can do from building companies is being good at identifying the right talent and filling the round holes with round pegs rather than round holes with square pegs type thing, which is what it feels like at the moment. But yeah, I think everything that I want to achieve in that world only happens if I can build up the right credibility in the world that I'm in now and actually have that economic success and be able to actually make an impact on this economy in this country. And then that kind of falls back into then, okay, now I've done that, I can start to push from a political level. I don't want to be never wanted to be a career politician. I've never wanted to be someone that starts as your local MP and works their way, or your councillor and then MP and then works their way up. I've never wanted to do that. I want to have a career all the way entirely outside of politics. I'm still very engaged in politics, but I don't have a role in politics. And then just go in right at the top. So skip it all, go right in at private,
Yeah, yeah. Like
and
how
have
you skip the uni. Yeah, you can skip
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
also, right? Yeah, yeah.
And Richard, you mentioned earlier that the way the structure today works is a little bit more punishing than motivating people to do things or to try new things, to build things. Is there any place in your mind or any structure, already existing structure or country in your mind which is good at this, which you actually like think is a good example?
Yeah, I mean, so there's different parts to it, right? Where you have it from a structural level in terms of taxation and resource and that kind of thing, where you can look at countries that do it well there. But then you also have from a mindset perspective and a kind of a psychological approach where that's a very different thing, but both things are very very important and you can do well off both. So, for example, everyone looks at California as, you've got Palo Alto, San Francisco, that kind of area where it's like, wow, this is where all the biggest companies have been built and this is where it happens. But the levels of tax in California are massive, really, really high tax rate. So it's not like it's oh, let's cut all taxes and let everyone build wealth. But what they've got is the right mindset and the right attitude, and they look at it from the right way that maybe we don't as a nation here. But then you look at the other side where you've got so many people moving out to Dubai and so on because they've got favorable tax structures. So that they're seeing a big boom over there. So but maybe they've not traditionally had the same attitude that the Americans have. So there's but two sides to it in terms of who does it right. And ideally, you can strike a balance between the two, right? In that you provide the right financial incentivization and you provide the right, or you create the right outlook and mindset on this kind of thing. So I think with most things, there's pros and cons for all of these countries and all these systems. And ideally, what you want to do is like cherry pick from each one and say, okay, well, this financial structure works well here, so let's copy that. And then this mindset is what we're trying to replicate here. So let's try and pick that over here. So yeah, those are the kind of the ways that you would look at it. But I don't think anyone's got it spot on. Obviously, America have done the best. Like there's no two ways about it. America have performed the best for however long it is, particularly in this tech world. So yeah, I think if you want to pick one standout, the facts say that it's America, but there's definitely ways that America could be even better.
Yeah.
No, actually, very true. Like the way you mentioned, there are two sides of it, and yeah, I agree. Like I don't think anyone has actually cracked it yet. So I'm looking forward to you cracking it, and then I will send my kids to the country.
Yeah, yeah, bring them in, bring them over.
Okay, great. Great, Richard. This is like a long but very interesting conversation. I don't know. Shall we wrap it up with any message that you want to give to like aspiring founders listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, I just always say get in the right circles, find the people that are in your tribe and build and just do it. Like just give it a go. The sooner you can get around people that are also thinking that way, the better. Because, they always say like, the sum of the five people around you. I don't know how true that is, but ideally you want to be with people that challenge you. Also, want to achieve the same level of things that you want to achieve in the same ballpark because you learn quicker. You learn quicker and it becomes the new normal and your baseline increases. So I'd say do that. And I'd also say subscribe to the Innovators Uncensored newsletter because there's lots of value in that.
Yeah, great, great. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for the time.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's always good to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. So this is the end of the episode, and we are very happy to have Richard today.
Okay, awesome. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
So, how was it?
It was. It felt like I'm talking to someone, a prime minister in making. It was preachy at times.
Especially when it got to the politics side. But I think his journey was very interesting, right? Like very, he figured things by himself, kind of, right? And he had a lot of clarity very early.
I'm amazed by the level of honesty on some of these things, right? That like being able to talk about failures in the way that he talked about that clearly I didn't do the customer research, I didn't do this, and then I mean I was at a point I knew that I couldn't do. I mean that is being like, it's a lot of honesty and it takes a lot of gut to be aware of your failures like that, and I mean I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, I think this is a thing we were again none of us are trained to do, right? Like look inwards, reflect on yourself, like again, like find your super skills, find your strengths, weakness. We were not trained to do that. I mean,
I think there is no right process to do anything, as he also said, right? That things could work out differently for different people. But like the last thing that you want to do is go into something like this without any intention and just like going there to do nothing, right? So that was pretty interesting. And I think like I was very curious about the fact that he did not go to any university. And even then, like, I mean, he's already looks like he knows a lot more than I know today. I'm like almost like 10 years older than him, and I have worked in so many companies. But the way he approaches and the way he learns and his is quite magnificent.
it's interesting, and I see a lot of similarity with Honda story, right? Like learning things in a very whatever put yourselves out there kind of way,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
You just go talk to the customer, like understand what their problem is. And then when you were saying that, I was kind of remembering, yeah, this is the exact same thing that Siddharth Handa said when he was trying to pitch his.
I think if we talk to like 10 more founders, we will know the secret sauce.
Then when we asked what is the secret sauce, and he's like, I'm also not, I'm an introvert. And I'm like, what? Yeah, and I think he also that was very interesting bit that he said that it is about finding that tribe to begin with where you feel comfortable, however small that is. Like when you start feeling comfortable in that smaller tribe, then you can start building on top of it, and then you become a community as you go on, right? So For example, like as a one-on-one conversation, people like us, we can go and have one-on-one conversation with people who we know. But I think the problem is with the strangers. So I think it's about figuring out how to approach that first stranger and then start building that tribe.
Yeah. I think the community building also is an interesting aspect, right? I think
Yeah.
whether you're building a business or whatever you're doing, you have to build a community is like a bottom line that's also becoming clearer and clearer.
Yeah. And I think with the help of and remember, like when we spoke about this podcast earlier, you said the same thing that, this podcast is not just a means to understand how people do things, but also a means to create a community, a close community of founders who are available for each other.